All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into, well, the chaos of the football transfer market. You know, all those whispers, the rumors, the huge deals that can just flip a club's whole season overnight.
It's that time of year, isn't it? Constant speculation.
Exactly. So who's really moving? And, maybe more importantly, why? What does it all actually mean for the clubs involved?
That's the million-dollar question, or maybe the 100 million pound question these days.
Yeah, probably. Look, this deep dive, it's basically your shortcut. We're cutting through all that noise, looking at the real insider info, the confirmed stuff, to figure out the why behind the headlines.
Trying to separate the signal from the noise, basically?
Precisely. So you can feel genuinely clued in. And hey, before we really jump in, if you like these deep dives, if we're hitting the topics you actually care about, just take a second and hit subscribe wherever you're listening.
Yeah, that way you won't miss out when we tackle the next big thing.
Okay, sorted. Let's get into the heart of it. Where do we even start with this window?
Well, I think the best place to start is with what we know. The solid ground, the deals that are actually done or like right on the verge. The here we go moments, as they say.
Love a good here we go. It cuts through the speculation. So what's the first one that sets the tone?
Okay, first up, Katara Takai to Tottenham. He's a young Japanese center back, 20 years old, turns 21 very soon.
Right.
Coming from the J-League, fees about £5 million. And the big thing here is he's going straight into the first team setup under the new coach, Thomas Frank. Straight
in. So not one for the future, loaned out immediately.
Nope. Seems like Frank sees him as someone who can contribute now, or at least be part of the main squad. It's an interesting move, part of Spurs adding more players this summer.
That Takai signing, it feels like a statement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially with Frank just coming in, what does that signal, bringing a young player straight into the first team?
Well, it signals a couple of things, I think. One, a belief in the player's immediate potential, maybe not as a starter week in, week out, but as a squad option. And two, maybe a shift towards developing talent in-house rather than just buying established names.
Right, blending youth with experience potentially. A calculated move. Okay, what other here we go deals are catching your eye?
Next one is Ronny Bardi, talented Swedish winger. He's going to Barcelona from Copenhagen.
Bardi to Barca, okay. Is that fully done?
Agreement is totally done between the clubs and crucially with the player too. Medicals and the contract signing, that's all happening next week, not this week.
Got it. And the details.
Worth around $2 million, long-term contract for Bardi. And interestingly, there's a due and sell-on clause included for Copenhagen.
Okay, hang on. A due and sell-on clause. Can you break that down a bit for us? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, sure. It's pretty smart from Copenhagen's perspective. It basically means if Barcelona sells Bardi later on, down the road, Copenhagen gets a certain percentage of that future transfer fee.
Okay. So they keep a stake in his future success, even after he's left.
Exactly. It's a way for clubs like Copenhagen to maximize the return on developing really promising young players.
Makes a lot of sense for them. Sounds like a potentially great deal for Barcelona, too, getting him for $2 million. Was there much competition?
Oh, absolutely. Bardi was pretty sought after. Several clubs around Europe were looking at him. Porto, actually, were apparently really close to agreeing a deal themselves.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but then Barcelona came in quite late in the process and managed to secure him. It shows Barca still has that pull for young talent. They see him as important for, both now and the future.
Wow, snatching him away like that. Classic Barca move, maybe. Okay, so we've got Spurs and Barca making moves. What about players leaving Europe? There's always talk.
There is, and we have a big one here, seemingly almost over the line, Theo Hernandez.
Theo Hernandez from AC Milan. Where's he heading?
To Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia. The agreement is very close, just final details being sorted.
Wow, what kind of fee are we talking?
Around $30 million for Milan. And obviously, Theo's set to receive let's just say an important salary package.
I bet. $30 million is still a significant fee, though.
Yeah.
What was the key to getting that one done? Do we know?
Yeah, this is quite interesting, actually. Reports suggest that the president of Al Ahly himself got directly involved in the final stages of the negotiation. His presence was apparently crucial in getting Theo's final yes.
The club president stepping in personally for a $30 million deal? Is that?
No.
Is that normal, or does that tell us something more?
It's definitely not standard for every deal of this size. No, it absolutely signals something deeper, I think. especially when attracting established European stars to a league like the Saudi Pro League.
How so?
Well, it's about more than just the money, right? Having the top figure at the club personally involved, it shows a level of respect, a level of commitment. It says, you're not just another signing, you're central to our project. That can be a really powerful message.
Yeah, I can see that. Making the player feel truly valued beyond the salary. Still, Hernandez leaving European football now. Does that kind of move still surprise you sometimes?
It always makes you pause for a second, yeah. He's a top player. But, aside from the obvious financial incentives, it's often about being the main man, guaranteed starts, leading a new project. And we know Simon Inzaghi, the Al Ahly coach, really pushed for him. That personal conviction from the coach, plus the president's involvement, it adds up.
So, okay, we got Takai to Spurs, Barty to Barca, Hernandez potentially to Al Ahly. If we zoom out for a second, what do these early confirmed-ish moves tell you about the bigger picture? Club strategies, the global landscape?
It really highlights the different paths, doesn't it? You've got big European clubs like Spurs and Barca investing in future potential, often younger players, smart, sustainable maybe. Then you have the Saudi League making these huge plays for established stars, aiming for immediate impact and visibility.
Like two different games being played almost.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. One's maybe chess, focusing on development and long-term structure. The other is maybe high-stakes poker, going all in for the big names right now. It's definitely widening the strategic approaches we see in the market.
A clear divide. Okay, that sets the stage with the confirmed stuff. But let's be honest, half the fun, or maybe the frustration of the transfer window is the rumors, right? The constant what ifs.
Oh, absolutely. And filtering the genuine whispers from the pure noise is key.
Exactly. So let's pivot to that. Let's tackle some of the big rumors doing the rounds. Where should we start? What's got everyone talking?
Well, one name that keeps cropping up regarding a potential move away from his current club is Mason Mount at Manchester United.
Right. Mount, yeah, seen loads of stories leaving, swap deals mentioned. What's the actual situation there? Is there any truth to it, or is it just paper talk?
Look, as things stand right now, end of June, what we understand is that Mason Mount's own intention, his clear intention, is to stay at Manchester United.
Really? Despite all the noise?
Yes. His focus is apparently on getting a really strong preseason under his belt, being fully fit, and working with the coach, Ruben Marima. Sources say Marima has always shown full confidence in him.
Okay, so the player wants to stay and fight for his place. That's significant.
It is. Now look, things can change fast in football, we know that, but his current mindset is firmly on staying put.
Fair enough. That puts those immediate exit rumors to bed, for now at least. Okay, what about that other big one? The potential swap involving Christopher Nkunku at Chelsea and Alejandro Garnacho at United. That sounds complicated.
Yeah, that one's resurfaced. It actually first came up, believe it or not, way back in December or January.
Oh, that long ago?
Yeah. Back then, United were interested in Nkunku, but more on a loan basis. And Chelsea were looking for a winger, and Garnacho was, an option they considered.
So why didn't it happen then?
A few reasons. Chelsea had other priorities at the time. Nkunku apparently wasn't keen on a loan. He wanted a permanent move or nothing. And Chelsea, similarly, were only looking at permanent deals, so the conditions just weren't right.
Okay, so the initial interest was there months ago, but the terms didn't align. Why is it back in the news now then?
Well, because the underlying situations haven't entirely changed. Both clubs are definitely aware of the players' situations now. United know Nkunku could leave Chelsea. Chelsea know Garnacho could leave United.
Right. So because both players are potentially available, people connect the dots.
Exactly. It looks like a similar situation that could make sense on paper, so the rumor mill starts churning again.
Okay, but here's the crucial bit. Is anything actually happening? Are there talks?
Right, this is key. As of tonight, based on everything we're hearing, there are no concrete negotiations taking place between Chelsea and Manchester United about this swap.
None at all.
No club-to-club contact initiated, no discussions around personal terms for either player with the other club. Nothing concrete is happening right now.
Wow. So it's literally just speculation based on awareness?
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. How do you, tell the difference? Is there a golden rule for spotting real interest versus just noise?
Yeah, the golden rule really is looking for those tangible steps. Has there been actual contact between the clubs? Have agents started talking personal terms? Is a medical planned? Without those markers, it's often just, awareness or maybe an idea being floated, but not active pursuit.
Right. Look for the action, not just the possibility.
Exactly. For example, we know Chelsea's actual priority for a left winger right now seems to be Jamie Bino-Gittens from Dortmund. They apparently have an agreement with the player and are actively talking to Dortmund. That's concrete. The Nkunku Garnacho thing isn't currently.
That makes it much clearer. So what about the players themselves in this? Do Nkunku or Garnacho even want to move?
Well, indications are that both players would be open to a move under the right circumstances. Garnacho, we hear, would be very happy to play in the Premier League again, maybe start a new chapter if he does leave United.
Oh, yeah?
And Nkunku, similarly, seems to want to leave Chelsea. He feels it's maybe time to go somewhere he can play more regularly.
So the desire might be there individually, but the swap deal itself isn't currently on the table between the clubs.
Precisely. And just to add, United's main focus right now seems to be elsewhere anyway. Bryan Mbeumo and a new number 9 are mentioned as their key targets. And Nkunku might be seen as a potential opportunity if things align, but he's not the priority they're actively negotiating for right now.
Got it. So for you listening, that distinction is massive, isn't it? Awareness versus active negotiation. Rumors can start from a tiny seed of truth player availability, past interest, but they often grow way beyond the reality of actual talks. Look for those concrete steps we mentioned.
Exactly right. Without confirmation of club contact or talks on terms, it's usually just a could happen, not a will happen. Big difference.
Brilliant advice. And that actually leads us perfectly into our next point, the power of the player. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the clubs want or what the rumors say. It all comes down to one person's choice.
This is where things get really fascinating. How much power do players actually have in this market? Sometimes it feels like everything hinges on their decision alone.
Totally. Let's talk about Rodrygo at Real Madrid. Arsenal's interest seems really strong, right?
Oh, incredibly strong. Arsenal's management, Miguel Arteta especially, they absolutely love Rodrygo. He's seen as a fantastic player, a kind of dream target for that winger position.
A dream target. Why him specifically?
Well, partly because another target, Nico Williams, is apparently seen as impossible to reach this summer. So Rodrygo remains a very, very strong name high up on Arsenal's list. The interest is definitely real and significant.
Okay, Arsenal are clearly keen. But there must be a catch, right? It can't be that simple with Real Madrid.
There's a huge catch, and it's all about the player himself. The only way, and I mean, the only way this deal even gets to the stage of proper negotiations, talking fees, salary, all of that, is if Rodrygo himself walks up to Carlo Ancelotti, the Real Madrid coach, and says, clearly, I want to leave Real Madrid.
Wow. So it's entirely down to him making that first move internally. Has he done that? Has he said anything to Ancelotti?
As of today, no.
Yeah.
He still hasn't told Ancelotti anything about wanting to leave. Nothing has come from his side to suggest he wants out.
So, zero indication from the player.
Right.
What's Real Madrid's position then? Are they just ignoring Arsenal's interest? Are they setting a price anyway?
Not at all. Real Madrid won't even communicate a potential price tag to Arsenal or anyone else until they hear directly from Rodrygo that he wants to go.
Really?
Yeah. They're essentially giving Rodrygo the space and time to figure out his feelings, maybe talk it through with Ancelotti, and they're giving Ancelotti time to understand what role he sees for Rodrygo going forward. It's an internal matter, first and foremost.
So it's like a holding pattern, completely dependent on Rodrygo's choice. That player power you mentioned, it's absolute here.
Absolutely. There's no concrete negotiation happening because the fundamental condition, the player wanting to leave, hasn't been met. Arsenal's interest is clear, no doubt, but the actual negotiation is blocked until Rodrygo makes that call.
It really shows, doesn't it? For these top players at top clubs, especially on long contracts, their desire, their explicit willingness to move is basically non-negotiable. The club can't really force it, and other clubs can't start talks without it.
Precisely. Even if Arsenal, hypothetically, were willing to pay a massive fee, it's irrelevant right now because the player hasn't opened the door. It highlights that huge element of unpredictability, player agency.
What a fascinating dynamic. Okay, let's try and pull this all together. It's been quite a ride through this transfer whirlwind.
It always is.
We've seen solid deals getting done, Takai to Spurs, Barty hitting to Barca. We've tackled some major rumors, clarifying the situation around Mason Mount wanting to stay at United for now.
Yeah.
And the Nkunku Garnacho swap being, well, just talk at this stage.
Yeah, distinguishing that awareness from actual negotiation is so important.
Definitely. And then we land on that critical point, player power. How a deal like Rodrygo to Arsenal is completely stalled, waiting entirely on his personal decision. It really shows how complex this all is.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear The transfer window isn't just about spreadsheets and bids. It's this high-stakes game of chess, maybe poker, like we said, where one player deciding yes or no can change everything for multiple clubs.
Absolutely.
So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. What do you think the biggest surprise turn will be before this window slams shut? Could it be a player we haven't even really discussed today making a huge, unexpected move?
Ooh, that's a good one to ponder. There's always one big shock, isn't there? Well, we hope this deep dive has helped you feel a bit more grounded amidst all the madness and ready for whatever twists come next.
Hope it's given you some clarity.
Thanks so much for joining us today as we navigated the thrilling chaos of the football transfer market. Keep staying curious, keep digging into these complex topics with us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive for more insights that hopefully really matter to you.